Hello everybody and welcome back to FantasyFootballFix.com. My name is FPL Phillips and FPL is back this weekend in Game Week 9, and here's your installment of your quick guide for this week. If you're new around here, this is the series where we take a look at the captaincy picks and also the top predicted point scorers ahead of the upcoming game week, and then also a look at the upcoming fixtures too, with the top teams to target and bring in players from, so you can make all the best decisions regarding your captain's armband and also your transfers for this week. So let's get into it, shall we, and kick things off with how the captaincy options are looking for this coming game week. And it seems like it's going to be quite a running theme so far this season, but it looks almost impossible to take the armband away from Erling Haaland. But this week does look like one where there could be potential to make that move, with Haaland going up against Manchester United, of course, in the Norwegians' first ever Manchester derby. The other options you can see here on screen do look like Mohamed Salah and then James Maddison as well, with Maddison being the more punty pick, whereas Salah's the more proven FPL asset in the past, of course. But he doesn't have the easiest fixture of the bunch, and that's when we look at this captaincy matrix that we put together here on the Fantasy Fix channel. The first row you can see is for the Game Week 9's predicted points total. We'll see the full top 10 for that list in a minute. But out of the three picks, it's Haaland who comes in on top, despite having arguably the toughest fixture of the bunch. He's on 7.3 predicted points to Salah's 6.0, with Maddison actually quite far down on 5.2, and you consider that's more than 2 points behind Haaland on the predictions on that matrix. We've also then got the ownership stats there, and the effective ownership, as always, will be released over on the Fix website around Friday, which is when it's nearer the deadline, and we're able to calculate how many of the top 10k managers or how many of the top 100k managers are looking like they're going to put their armband on a certain player. And of course that can be very helpful because you're looking towards what the top managers in the game are doing right now and how that can affect your rank as well. So I'd recommend later on in the week going over and making sure that you use the links in the description to bookmark that website down below, and make sure you find the big captain data reveal and make sure you've got that saved to go and look at later on in the week. Very, very useful tool indeed. We've then got the fixtures here, and I did say that, the Manchester derby's never an easy game for Manchester City. United seem to always put up a pretty decent fight against the top teams in historical sense anyway. We'd like to see how Ten Hag fares under many of these big games. We've seen him do well against Arsenal, of course. Can he do the same against Manchester City? Well, when we look at the data that we've actually got in numbers, it looks like Brighton, who are actually the toughest defence of the bunch. And we can do that by having a look at the expected goals conceded of these teams that these three captaincy options are facing this week. So Salah's facing Brighton, who have an expected goals conceded so far per 90 this season of 0.84. We've then got Manchester United, the second strongest defence, on 1.41. And then Nottingham Forest, unsurprisingly, who James Maddison's going up against, the weakest defence with 1.97 expected goals conceded per 90 for them. So that's the main reason that Maddison's being considered as a potential option, because Leicester not looking in the best form. But equally, if Leicester gets something from that game, and you'd expect them to put maybe 1 or 2 goals in, there's a very high chance that Maddison would be involved as well. We've then got on these last two rows the expected goals of the teams as units. So Manchester City looking like the most formidable attack with 2.24 expected goals as a team per 90. With Liverpool then on 1.99, and Leicester though all the way down on 0.93. They haven't looked very strong. It really is a case of going for that fixture in terms of, instead of going over the form of Leicester as a side. And then finally, we've got the expected FPL points of the players so far this season, and it won't surprise you to know that Erling Haaland is top of that with 8.91 expected FPL points per 90. Salah on 6.22, and Maddison quite low actually on 3.64. Of course, in more recent weeks, you'd see that number rising a bit with Maddison, and maybe this is the week where you want to target that and go really big. But we're early on in the season still. I wouldn't recommend taking any massive risks if you're happy with where your rank is at the moment, or even if you're not happy with where your rank is. There's plenty of time to still make it up by having small wins and getting a game week rank inside 1 million. So I'd recommend captaining Erling Haaland this week. That's what I'm going to be doing. I will be sticking my armband on Haaland as usual. I know it's a little bit boring. It's not as exciting. If that's the way you want to play FPL, and make sure it's always being fun. And James Maddison looks like a nice pick as well. Mohamed Salah, if you own him, of course, owning him at all is a little bit of a differential at the moment, given that a lot of people opting for a different premium, maybe going for Kevin De Bruyne or even Heung-min Son, who scored a hat-trick back in Game Week 8, which does feel like a while ago now. but Erling Haaland would be my captain of choice for this game week. And we looked at some of the predicted points there for Erling Haaland, who was top, and he is actually top when we look at all players across game week 9, indicating that he would be the best captain option. But it's not actually Mohamed Salah who comes in second, it is Haaland's teammate Kevin De Bruyne. You can see that on 6.3 predicted points. So even in second, still a whole predicted point behind Erling Haaland. That's how good his underlying data has been so far this season. He really does just look like a set and forget captaincy option in this current form if he can maintain his fitness, which he does seem to be doing very well. I know a lot of people were skeptical surrounding that at the start of the season, but it seems to have been that Haaland's managed to maintain it well. Of course, Pep's mentioned, and we know he is a young player. He seems to be in his prime years, and he's going to be able to get many minutes under his belt and get many goals in that time, which is what's going to earn us those FPL points. Elsewhere in the top 10, we've got Jamie Vardy coming in, who I wouldn't recommend going for. Brendan Rodgers has mentioned that Daka and Iheanacho going to get game time over Jamie Vardy. Daka could be ill, which is worth mentioning, but if he does come back, he could be a very nice option as a cheap striker option. But we'll speak about that in just a moment when we look at the fixtures to target. We've then still got Gabriel Jesus in there. I know a lot of people offloading on those Arsenal assets now to try and maybe jump for a forward like a Mitrovic, who does seem to have better fixtures. Mentioned Dakin just then. There's Tony as well. Alexander Isak looks like he's picked up a knock, so I'd be wary of going for him unless we get some concrete news that he's back. But recent reports suggesting that he'll be on the sidelines for a while, the Swede. And then we've got Alexander-Arnold making it into the top 10 again. Tony, who we just mentioned. Alisson at Liverpool making it into the top 10. We don't see too many keepers in here, but as always, I wouldn't recommend making a keeper transfer if you can help it. And if you're on a wild card, I would not be going for Alisson. I think there are better keeper picks. And then finally, Martinelli. So 2 Arsenal boys making it into this side. Their underlying data's looked very good, of course. The Arsenal fixtures aren't in a little bit of a rough patch, so maybe not the best holds long term up to game week 16 where we get those unlimited transfers. But at the moment, looks like it's a pretty safe hold if you want to go and keep Jesus and Martinelli. It does look pretty tough to drop players in such good form. And then finally, we're going to touch on the upcoming fixtures over the next couple of game weeks. And we're getting to the point now where we're actually including game week 12 in these matrices. And we can see when Manchester City and Arsenal blank, who are some of those teams to target that have some of the best fixtures. And that's something that's really quite key to look at and almost isolate ahead of the other weeks when we're looking towards something like maybe the defenders to target. There are also players that you need to make sure you're ruling out. And we can see there, if you look towards the right-hand side, West Ham, 3 rows down, they face Liverpool in game week 12. And so despite having some nice other fixtures, I would instantly rule out going for any player from that team, because I think it's likely that most people in their sides at the moment, they have Cancelo, maybe Kevin De Bruyne, definitely Erling Haaland, and then maybe another Arsenal player. So we're going to need more options when Man City and Arsenal do blank in game week 12 to fill in our starting 11. So looking at that and looking at the very right-hand column of the table, you can see that Crystal Palace down at the bottom have Wolves, which looks like a very nice fixture, and then Southampton have Bournemouth. So I'd be looking towards defenders maybe from those teams to even go for. Fulham against Aston Villa as well doesn't look too bad, but Fulham's defensive data as a team isn't the best. Personally, I really like the look of Mark Guehi if I was going to bring in a defender this week. 4.3 million, he's only 1.2% owned, and very good on the bonus points last system. He came in 5th for baseline bonus points out of any defender in the game. It was only the likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold who managed to beat him for that. So it looks like a very nice pick. Now he's had those price drops down to that very cheap price. I would consider bringing him in if you're looking for going for a defender at all and you already own the likes of Cancelo, Reece James and Trippier, who seem like the ones to go for if you're on a wild card or making a move with unlimited budget in your defence. So we touched on the defence. Looking at the attacking side of things, Leicester, of course, looking at the top. And really with most of these teams, there seems to be one standout option to go for if you're looking to target the fixtures. With Leicester, that being Maddison. Bournemouth, Dominic Solanke, looking like a pretty good striker pick you can go for as well, on top of all those other striker options we just mentioned when we were talking about the predicted points. In terms of Aston Villa, I think it is quite a gamble to go with one of their forward options. Ollie Watkins could be a pick, maybe going for Leon Bailey, but realistically, I don't think they're a team to target with the form that they're in terms of attacking at the moment. And then we've got Crystal Palace and Fulham, with Zaha and Mitrovic respectively being the ones I'd pick, and quite the obvious options to go for from those most teams. So that's going to wrap up the episode of your quick guide for Game Week Line. Let me know your thought of it down below in the comments, and make sure, as always, if you did enjoy the video, to leave a thumbs up. I'll get involved in all the discussion, so make sure you leave a comment down there, and I'll get back to you with a reply. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. I'll see you very soon. Goodbye.